Today's Resilience Reset, I am so excited because I have a special guest, another interview that I'm bringing to you. It's Jill Ellis-Worthington. Now, Jill and I, we met years ago when I was working, oh my gosh, was it for the Salvation Army? I think it might have been, and writing the People You Know column. So we're talking like 2006. 2003, somewhere in there, because I wrote it from 2003 till 2007. And so somewhere in there we met and have become friends ever since. And she is one of London, Ontario, well, actually one of Canada's foremost authorities on communication. And dare I say, we'll roll her into the shot. Come on in. So because I'm not at home and we are in the same room, we can't be on different computers because we would have the feedback for the audio. So that is why we're going to do it like this. We're going to, if that's all right. So we will do this. Now, here's the thing. She can answer any question. We can talk about media relations and PR. We can talk about blogging. I think specifically, we're going to have a little bit of fun with grammar because she has a grammar course and is one of those people who is like, you know, can see the or, and the there, and the there, and the there. And there's more to it than just that. So I think, like, where do we start? Because a lot of people are really good at what they do, but aren't good at communicating how they do.
Well,
right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you are a great, lawn care expert or business consultant or dentist or anything, you're really good at that. But I mean, usually, in the entrepreneurial world, you wear a lot of hats. And one of those hats is usually marketing. And so it starts in two places, really, with strategic communication planning, where you figure out who your target audience is, where you need to meet them, and how they want to be communicated with. So that's that's really a good foundation. But then once you figure all of that out, then you have to do that communication. And face it, I mean, when we're taught in school, the whole language and all of that didn't really ever cover grammar.
Interesting.
And people think grammar is boring and horrible, but of course I'm a pleasing and fun person, so I make it pleasing and fun.
Yeah, pleasing and fun, absolutely. So, okay, so because I want to go into the grammar. So what are the biggest mistakes people make there? Let's start with that right off the top. What do you see happen?
Everybody talks about everybody's famous your, and your, there, and there, two, and two. And it's true. But you know what? It's even more than that, because those you can kind of remember and whatever. It goes back to some real basics like subject-verb agreement. So I work with people starting out with what is the subject and what is the predicate of a sentence, because how can you make those agree if you don't know what they are?
Right. Because I kind of remember this from school, right? Like, I'm a writer, so I know some of it. But I remember one of my books you edited for me. And you were like, oh, Allison. And it was just like little things, like not putting a comma before the but, or joining two sentences and stuff like that, right? But like even writers like me, I've been writing in the news for years. And I didn't know.
Okay, number one, everybody needs an editor. My husband kindly proofreads the stuff that I write. And when I write for magazines, I still write for magazines and sometimes newspapers. I have professional, colleagues that proof my stuff. So the fact that if you're not a writer, you still need a proofer. Don't worry about that
right.
You need somebody to look at things. But it's also, like I said, just really the basics. Where one of the things that goes up my spine is where people don't make, they have like a singular subject, like
okay.
Allison.
Yes.
They wouldn't really make this. Oh, the one that really is a lot, family. Allison's family are in London. That's commonly used in England, but it's not appropriate here. That's
right.
a collective, what we call a collective noun.
Okay.
Right. So like people, a team, like the Ravens, that's my team.
Yeah.
So the Ravens, but that's a unit. So it's used with a singular verb.
Yes.
So people are mystified by this.
So the one that drives me crazy, and it happens a lot in music, is instead of using he or she, they use they or them. Or right, and this is the new words. So how does one navigate that? Because now the world is changing, right?
It's
we're
a
more
bigger
politically
problem.
correct. Yes.
Yeah, so people have done that all the time because they would say the Ravens, they are a good team. Well, the Ravens is a good team, right? Because they're a collective noun.
Because she's a Ravens fan.
I'm a Ravens fan, or the Saints, or any team.
Okay.
So now it's even a little muddier because some people choose to use they or their as a singular pronoun referring to themselves.
Right.
So in that case, what we have to do is treat that as a singular they, which is usually a collective, as a singular. So it's if you're referring to one person who wants to be called they, it's they is wearing yellow today. Okay, so it looks wrong and it sounds wrong,
but it's right.
But it is right in the context of how we are doing this today, and so we just need to get over it. It's taken me a long time to get to that, and I've struggled with it, and I just realized that language has changed over the years. Did you know that you and thou, so you used to be a collective you, and thou used to be a singular you. So if I was talking to you, thou art beautiful. Huh. And you are beautiful would be like the people are beautiful, right?
Oh.
So language evolves. So we just have to get our heads around that. But this is new.
But in fairness, wouldn't it be fun if we went around and said the word thou? I'm just going to use it. Let's just be thou art the, anyway, we've got some comments here. Oh, thank you. Excellent. Yeah, it is a good topic. This whole thought around communication. Now, remember, if you want to ask questions of Jill, we've got her here. So now with the grammar, if you have questions about this, Jill actually has an entire grammar course that you can buy, and it's available. So just reach out to me and I can definitely connect you with Jill. And I think that's really important, especially if you have a team of people who are out there writing, probably a good investment or for yourself. But let's now talk about media relations, okay? Because I think that as small business owners, many of us who are on the call today, or just executives even, we want to get the coverage, but it's changing.
Yeah, it is. It's harder. It's harder for several reasons. It's harder because there are fewer reporters and people covering things. There are fewer people are reading newspapers and or magazines are magazines are kind of growing actually. And there are fewer ads being sold, and fewer and less is one of those really tricky ones too, by the way. So see, I keep saying fewer because those are things that are countable. It's less sugar because that's not countable. It's less water.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So those factors make it just harder, and there's many people competing for it, and we as business owners usually want to tell a good news story.
Yeah.
But bad news gets the headlines.
Yeah. So how do you find, how do you get in because I want to talk about stress, right? Well, let's not talk about me. We can talk about my strategy after, but I'm just curious because it is the good news stuff that we want to share, and that's not what's selling ads, right? That's not what's sensationalized. That's not what people are tuning into. So how do you bridge that? Do you make it negative just to hit the mark?
No, it's just that you're fighting for space with negative stories. So in lifestyle, in the if you're using the free press, the U pages or magazines that are maybe tilted towards your health or whatever. The very first thing, and this has always been the rule, is have a story. It's the fact that you are a business and that you deal with stress is not the story.
Right.
It's the angle. It's getting in there and being able to tell it in a different way than anybody else, and being able to hit a trend will get you in there a lot earlier. And unfortunately, it sometimes is who you know would be a big third one.
Okay.
So story, angle, hitting a trend, and not just who you know, but knowing who to send it to. So say you're dealing with wanting to have a new angle around stress or something. Who is the healthcare reporter at CTV? Who covers health for whatever newspaper? And the one thing people forget, I'm just gonna slide this one in here, trade magazines.
Oh,
Trade
okay.
magazines. So anytime you
sorry.
get published at all, it's great to just get out there, but it's also great to have that to repurpose on your website, gives you more credibility, blah, 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 right?
Right.
So people forget things like trade publications because it reaches other people in your field, so it sets you apart that way. And sometimes if what you do isn't their specialty, it gives them a reason to recommend you.
Right.
That it gives you something to reshare on your social, on your, when you build up the media part of your website, things like that. So, if you're their trade publications for almost anything. I started out editing a trade publication for the lawn tractor trade.
The lawn tractor trade? Awesome.
Lawn and garden trade.
Awesome. It's interesting when you talk about the trends, and I missed a news story, and I think I could have done really well with it, and I thought about it 2 days too late.
Yep.
Remember when Minister Monty McNaughton, he's a minister, right? Or MPB, came out with the new labor law around people can't email a certain size company. They have to have a time. Well, that was all about burnout and avoiding burnout. And that would have been a great time for me to jump in.
Totally.
Yeah, and I totally lost it. I lost it.
And that proves the other really important point is timing.
Yes.
So timing of your story to hit the trends,
Yeah.
and that you want to be the first person to contact whatever news outlet you're talking about. But also, what time of day do you hit them? If you send that idea to them at 4:00 on a Friday, dead. But if you send it to them, maybe they used to have the news meetings around 10 o'clock. So like at 9:30 or 11:30 or something on a Tuesday, pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good chance. So anyway, I missed it. I could do the leg. Remember last week when Monty said something? No, might not work. Okay, we've got a lot of stuff here in the chat.
Okay.
So we've got to go in here. All right. So the first one, Jill, what are your thoughts on the AI services such as Grammarly? Are they helping or hurting the use of proper grammar, in your opinion?
Great question. When I was coming through school, I was terrible at math, and they wouldn't let you use calculators because they didn't want you to get dependent on them, right? And the thing is when
who's laughing now about that? Hey Siri, do my math for me. Sorry, buddy. No, just ignore.
You can tell this is live. So anything like that is a crutch. The problem is if you get dependent on it, that's not good. Also, if you don't know enough to know when it's wrong, because if you calculate something, you're wildly out of crazy number, that's wrong. So all of like spell checking and stuff, I know I go set all my stuff through my spell check, my grammar check, but I know when it's wrong and it's telling me the wrong thing because it's maybe looking at it in a different context that I'm meaning it or something like that. So they are good, and Grammarly is probably one of the better ones, but not. It's hurts. What you know can hurt you. Don't know can hurt you. So yes and no.
Yeah. And actually, I had a correction on something that I wrote earlier this morning, and I was like, why are you correcting it that way? And if I didn't have the basic information and know that, I would have just corrected it, and then it would have gone out, my big email would have gone out to people with the wrong thing. So awesome. Dave Langford's on the call, which is great. They is. Yeah. Well, and David, we know from our Free Press days, he was also at the Free Press, used to be the sports editor and everything. So he knows what we're talking about here. This is great. Very insightful. Sorry, we have to look around to see the words because we've got the big thing in the way, especially for a person whose English is a second language. Always great listening to Jill Ellis. I agree with you. Jill is brilliant and fantastic. I'm curious about English as a second language. Like, could people who are with your course on grammar help them?
It depends on how new they are to English, how long they've been taking. So it's meant for people who are come through this system, but the system doesn't do well for them, or they've forgotten a lot of it. So the same thing for people whose English is the second language. If they've learned the basics, like, if you just just arrived, no, not good, right? There's so much. There's a big hill to climb. But if you've been here for a few years and want to tighten up your grammar, yes, I've worked with people whose English is second language. They were very good at, but they didn't get a lot of finer points, and so their social media posts were often without punctuation, or disagreement and noun verb, things like that.
Okay.
So yeah, so refining, good, yes.
All right, awesome. And Dan has a great point. He often does, let's be honest. He's one of our show regulars. He says that the Queen's English didn't allow for Star Treks to boldly go where no man has gone before, split infinitive, until a few years ago, because Modern Languages Association is always updating and changing and adding to the 3 million English words. Yeah.
Totally true, yes. And you know what, that kind of leads to another thing that we need to think about is when you write, you're a writer, so people are going to expect certain things of you. But if you're blogging or posting and you're a healthcare professional, something like a massage therapist or something, they're not going to be expecting you to be perfect, but they want you to be professional. You want to be professional.
Yeah.
And same thing, like if you're blogging, so to whom or to who, and that kind of thing, those really kind of more fine points would be critical for me to use, or you.
Right.
But they're also not real conversational. So if it's not conversational and you're writing something like a blog is meant to be conversational, you might not want to include that because it sounds formula. Some people get that as stuffy or haughty or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's, again, knowing your audience.
Yeah. And then Liliana is saying here about when English is a second language, then grammar is a problem. It's huge. It absolutely is.
I can tell you that from learning Spanish. It is true.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Well done. I didn't know you knew Spanish.
Oh, yeah. I started taking it in high school.
Oh, good for you. Oh, she's an American. That happens. Most Americans, Spanish would be their second language, I think, right?
We were given the choice between French, Spanish, Latin, and German, and I chose Spanish because it is more prevalent in the States. If I'd known I was going to Canada, I think I would have probably chosen French.
Yeah,
but
well,
it's very handy when we travel south and I can order the margaritas.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I am Canadian and I took French most of my life, and I went to France and all I could order and have come out right was baguette, jambon, fromage. So anyway, all right. So even if you were here, your French may or may not have done very well. You brought up a really great thing, which is blogging. Mm-hmm. So another one of the courses that Jill has done is how to blog. So how important is it for people to be blogging?
I think it's really important. I mean, because, or I wouldn't have put together a course. And it's also too, it's not on setting up the blog, the technical part. Right. I would never, ever be your person, but the process of blogging. And it's improving your writing skills in any format. The reason blogging is so important is it always has been, but through the pandemic when our presence was more online and we couldn't really meet people or speak to people like as an audience and that kind of thing. It was a way to show off your skills, show off your personality, why they should choose you for their, auto mechanic or whatever your field is, rather than the guy down the road. So it's a great one for that. What I concentrate in my course is the process. There are 3 things that prevent people. I don't have time. Okay. I don't know what to write, and I'm not a good writer. So we address all of these things, and they are all defeatable. And things like I have a blogging formula, so it's really kind of a plug and play. Okay. So if you do that, it takes a lot of the strain out. We do blog storming, so you always have a list of topics, so you never have like, oh my gosh, I have writer's block, I have nothing to write about, because hey, there's a list on your wall.
Yes. I need to do one of those because I'll be like, oh, I've got to do a live today. What will the topic be? And I often am racking my brains up until moments before. And now lately, though, I have been planning out an agenda for the week. So that's been helpful. But I think that would be really cool to have a bunch of ideas. And I think sometimes business owner, like I'm creating content because I create content. So like for me, it's not that hard to come up with why and what I'm going to write about. But maybe like you talk about the mechanic, you talk about the mortgage broker or the real estate agent or the small business owner who's doing, selling something. Mm-hmm. It can be harder for them. So where do they start? Do they start in their day-to-day lives to find topics, or do they start within their product to find data? Like where do you start brainstorming those ideas?
There's tons of ways. I mean, start thinking about what when you're at a cocktail party or whatever, you meet somebody in the grocery line, what is the first question they ask you about your business? Or what is their first comment about your business? So kind of, pick a few of the FAQs and hit those. Okay. Decide, what are the most important things or most misunderstood about your field? You know that.
Oh, that's another good one.
That would be a ton of topics.
Really
and
great.
Those kinds of things. So there's a series of prompts we go through to start to form your blog storming list. And the other thing is an editorial calendar. I know there are probably a lot of ways that people have of organizing their topics, but I go back to my days at the Free Press or before with editorial calendar. And that doesn't mean just, it's basically, it breaks down the year because different things happen different time of the year. So, Christmas is always going to happen, right?
Right.
So if you have something that's pertinent to Christmas, and almost everybody does, you may want to make sure that you're kind of starting your blog on that in probably September, October, so you can put it out sort of, by at least mid-November.
Oh,
right?
okay, interesting.
So that you're always planning ahead. And you know what? Margarita Day is a thing. So if you think there would be a fun blog.
I need to get this on my calendar. I don't have Margarita Day mentioned.
I'm just
on my
using this
calendar.
example. There's
I love
also,
it. Yeah, there's pizza day and-
walk your dog day and
Yeah.
whatever. You know what? If you have a blog that you could write and put out that day, it would be great. It could be evergreen. You could put it up every year on that, as long as it was still, fresh. You'd want to freshen it up and, turn it up. But so there's a lot of ways to take a lot of the work out of it, right? Things you could reuse, things that'll be cornerstone blogs and things like that. Sometimes we make these things bigger problems than they are.
Yeah. And I know we have questions in the chat box, but I have another one that you've just brought up.
Okay.
So I tend to create a lot of content, as people would know, and there are things like how to take the zen of summer into the fall time, right? So I wrote that like 3 years ago, but then I just leave it there. Like, am I supposed to bring that out? Is it okay to post things over and over again?
100%. And again, take it out, freshen it up, make sure it's still germane to exactly what's going on, because something you wrote pre-COVID about Zen of Summer might not be appropriate now. And you might want to like tweak the lead or something, right? But as long as it's fresh, I mean, A, do you remember things you read 3 years ago? B, you probably have a larger and more different audience than you had 3 years ago, that sort of thing. So there are some... There are a couple different kinds, well, there are several different kinds of blogs. There's a trend blog that will probably just be good right now.
Okay.
There's a cornerstone blog that will be always important about you and what you do, that you'll want to leave up all the time. And then there are these evergreen topics. And this applies to social media posts too, because you can also calendar those out.
Right.
So I did cornerstone. Oh yeah, evergreen. So that it's something that happens every year, or something that you can, freshen up and bring back.
Okay, good. All right, let's go to the chat box. We got a bunch of questions here. All right, so did I already pull this one up? Oh, no. Knowing your audience is critical. Absolutely. You talk a lot about your target audience, right? Proper trumps improper. However, I believe it's important to write for your audience and be aware of their expectations, following up on the point that you just made, right? Because when you were saying, like, who are you? And in relation to your client base, are you, what are they expecting from you, right?
That's a big part of it, but also you want to go to what the top of what so you want to be a professional. You want to be someone they're going to emulate, somebody they trust to do business with, somebody, and especially if you're not all business is based on trust, but if it was something like massage therapy or like even hair or anything, if you started using bad grammar or whatever, they're kind of like, oh, that's maybe not professional, or you didn't have the right picture that was on your blog, or anyway, all those things. You always want to exceed expectations, but you also don't want to seem like you're talking down to people.
Right. And as we've talked on different resilience resets, when I've talked about perfectionism and how, done is better than perfect. So if there's a little typo here, a little typo there, it's okay, because it's actually better to get it out than have it. And I always used to joke that I create for the hard drive. Right. And we got to get it off your hard drive out into the world so people can see. And like, that t-shirt that I often wear, teach everything you know, is definitely a way of life. Okay. So Kim writes here. Now I write on my social media every day for my foundation. I know you corrected that after we were just talking about grammar. It's so fun. How do you know when your writing is effective versus a numbers game? Interesting question.
I'm not sure I completely understand it. Like, effective writing is always writing that gets results. So, especially on social media, but of course on blogs and everything, you want to excite and get or depending on what your goal is, are you trying to excite your audience? Do you want to get empathy from them? Do you want to show that you're empathetic? There's always an emotional tie-in. So if you get reactions from it, like if people are commenting or whatever, that you have reached them, then you're successful. A numbers game, I don't know if you're maybe talking about followers and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's important, of course, because if you're reaching 3 people, that's not amazing. But if you're reaching the right 3 people or getting a response from 3 people, then you're effective.
Well, and it's interesting because, and we've talked about numbers on this show again, right? Because sometimes the numbers can be a vanity metric.
Yeah.
Right. And like, if you were in today to influence positively one person's life, is that better than influencing 0 people's lives? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, that's profound. And that's why I never get hung up on the numbers, the views or whatever. Like, I mean, I used to, because I used to like judge myself. Like, obviously I suck. Like thousands of people are not showing up, but I'm like, you know what, damn it, there are 10 people showing up and I am so grateful for those 10, and how do you
well, as business people, we can only serve so many people, we can only work with so many people. And the fact that, and some people have a scarcity mindset where they look at competition as really threatening. I mean, I come from a corporate background where that was very true. But really, it's how many people can you serve? Who do you want to serve? As long as you are serving the right people in the right way, more people will come to you in abundance. There's enough work for everyone.
Absolutely.
Right? So It's much more important to be working with the right people than be working with a lot of people.
Yeah. And Kim, I know her passion is all around helping to squash domestic violence and just doing some incredible work in the states around this. And so if you can touch one woman who's going to get out of an abusive relationship, like, oh my gosh, right? Like, get out there. And obviously we want to touch more, and there's a huge problem and you're going to influence people over the long term. But sometimes the numbers is not the best measure. Actually, a friend of mine who, and you know him too, but I won't say his name because it's not my story to tell, but although he's told it many, many times, he had one video on YouTube that got 35 views. He got a 7-figure training contract from that 35 views. One person on that, who of those 34 didn't matter. Number 35 was the person who had the purse strings, who needed some training that he had, and ultimately was 7 figures, multiple 7 figures in the end. So numbers, not so much. Okay, how do you get a following? All right, where are we going here? I want to be sure I didn't, hold on, we'll go up first. Okay, so let's go to Liliana's question. I am planning a blog for my business. Exciting. The first one would be about the launch of my business, but I am stuck. Any ideas?
Yes.
Lots of ideas, I'm guessing.
I rarely write in the first person, but if it is your story, you should write in the first person. But here's the thing. You want people to come to your business because they need your product or your service. Knowing something about you so that you seem relatable to them is important, but the fact of where you got, how you got there, probably isn't as important. It might be the high points might be important, but starting at your birth or whatever is not really what they want to know. They want to know what you can do for them, what their product or what your service can do for them, but why they should go to you over any of your competition, in the fact, and find you relatable. So that's where I would start. If you want to tell your business story, maybe tell it orally to a couple of people who don't know it. And then as you're listening to yourself talk, the high points of why it's important that you're doing this for your customers, why they should buy from you.
Great. That's exciting. And let us know when you're up and running so we can share it. It feeds into this next question.
I would love to get a link to that blog just so I can see the result.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Liliana, if you were looking to blog, like, I know Jill's not on here to plug her courses, but I know I've been through all of her courses, and I'm going to tell you they are brilliant, really, really reasonably priced. And I would highly recommend, if you're going to take blogging seriously, then do the work up front. Get a course like Jill's is the one I would recommend, so that you're setting the foundation and making it easier, because so many people start a blog and then never finish it. They don't stick with it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a big problem because they don't have a process for making it happen. So Kim's got a question. How do you build your following on the blog? I have one on my website.
Well, first of all, you write good blogs, so people
Okay.
want to read them.
Good idea. And relevant to your audience.
Relevant
the people
to your
who you
audience,
want to get to them.
And also just, and when I say good blogs, my formula starts with a clickbait title, which sounds bad, but I mean it in the context of people, you want to intrigue people, so they will start the blog, and then you want to keep them involved, and so that the formula kind of takes them through the process of keeping them involved. So what you don't want is keep people coming to your blog and then going, like reading like 2 lines and going off, right? You want to keep them there for the whole time. So that would be number 1. Number 2 would be to, of course, share it on your own social. And there are a lot of other platforms you can put it on, like Medium and things like that. Also guest blogging and cross blogging with people who have a complementary, unless you have a competitor who just, you love and they love you, and you could do it that way. But people who are probably better ones are like, so say if you're a stylist and a hairdresser, you guys are I do probably pick us an image stylist and a hairstylist. They're going to have similar demographics probably that they're going to go after. So if they each write blogs and they cross blog, would be great. They get each other's audiences, so more people see you. The same with guest blogging on somebody else's blog.
Right, and I think consistency helps a lot as well. Like and sorry about there's a lot of construction outside, so sorry if the mic is picking that up. But I think doing that, like the consistency, so that people know when to expect it, is really important. Yeah. Okay, so Liliana saying my 50th birthday, that might be a story. Okay. All right. In our writing, sorry, I just can't see through this thing. Our writing group, we talk about the presentations and speeches, 3 parts. Tell them what you're going to tell them, say it, then remind them what you just told them in your speech. If you're going to speak, have something to say. So 2 great points. One is about structure. And I know that is a very popular formula for speaking. Is that the one you recommend, or are there other ways? You have another way? Go ahead.
For speaking or writing?
Speaking.
Okay, for speaking.
Because you also help people with speak prep.
I do, yeah.
Speech
and
prep.
When we could have, workshops.
Right, back in the day.
We used to have workshops on helping people be good speechwriters, right? To not really maybe give like keynotes and stuff like you do, but to talk to their networking groups or to a community group, that kind of thing. And every kind of speaking or writing always starts with that powerful lead. You have to have above the fold thinking, which means, when you look at a newspaper, let's say you're at like an airport where there's a newsstand and there's still like 8 newspapers spread out there. They're usually like on the first level of the rack. And you're looking at all of these different ones, and you're looking at the front page above the fold. The ones that have the best headlines and images are the ones that grab your attention, that you want to buy. That's above the fold thinking. Why are people going to jump in on you, right?
Okay. Yep.
So you start with that, and then there's the structure includes, a little bit of your story, so that you're relatable, how it relates to your topic. Then your 3 points, I say speeches and blogs and things usually shouldn't cover more than 3 points, because otherwise then you're going to get too wordy, getting kind of lost. People usually take things in 3s. Yeah. So 3 points that you want to make about it. Then usually maybe some pro tips, like for the tell them what you told them type of part of that, so you can kind of do a little précis pro tips. And then the other thing too is you always want to leave people with some kind of intriguing thought or funny thought or something, so they'll remember you. Right? You come in powerful, go out powerful, and you always want to let people know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, right. The call to action. Yes. All right. So Rod has a comment here. To Greg's point, I think it's pertinent to be you in your writing. I agree. And in everywhere that we show up in our business communication, I think it's important to be authentic. I think your followers follow you because of your persona. If you tend to be humorous in person, it's probably expected somewhat in your writing. as well. Agree. Interesting. Yeah. See, I'm funny. I laugh at all my jokes when I'm on camera. I don't necessarily laugh at my jokes in writing. I don't think my writing's very ever funny. Interesting. I never thought of that. Thanks, Rod. Now I'm going to be thinking.
And as we mature in our writing, and I think that's a really great point, I will say that because I came out of a corporate writing structure, I wasn't humorous in my writing, but I am, I think, hopefully humorous.
Of course.
And, because people, and accessible, not, I would never go up to Martha Stewart and want to have a conversation with her because she doesn't look very accessible, right? So you don't want to be that person.
Right.
Sorry, Martha, if you're watching.
If she's here, chime in. I'll send you a link to come on camera, Martha Stewart. We'll find out if you're funny or not.
So in the last couple of years, I've let my inner funny shine.
Okay.
And one of my blogs is on everybody wonders about parts of speech, right? And it's one of those things that makes you sort of people go parts of speech. But so I did a blog a couple of years ago on the F word because it's one of the only words in the English language. It's the most malleable word. It can be used as almost every part of speech. So I wrote that and I used it, liberally, and I put a little disclaimer telling if you're offended, please don't read this.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. So I've let my inner funny shine, and I think that was a great point that you're making because I think people expected that me and I wasn't delivering.
Right. Okay.
So I think you're right. But I will caveat that with if you are a funeral director, you might want to watch that type of thing. And if I'm writing a serious thing about, I don't know, like I did one on agreement, and I wasn't all that funny in that one because I think that's a really serious and difficult topic for people.
Right.
So, authentic is always important, but also you don't have to have the same tone and everything. It should be a relatable tone. It should be your tone, but it doesn't always have to be the same.
Right, because we're not always the same people to where,
and not everything
what we
deserves, not every subject deserves funny or serious or somber.
Yeah, well, we need to be all sides of those things
Yeah.
to all of us. All right, I love it. Oh my God, that time just went by so quickly.
Are we good?
Well, I think we should wrap. It's time.
Mm-hmm.
I love all these questions. Obviously,
Great.
having you as a guest is really great for the show.
Thank you.
I knew that Jill was going to be full of tons of information. If you are interested, by all
Awesome.
means, I will be sure to actually. We'll go into because this show goes on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So I'll go and I'll put the links to Jill's website and her online courses in the comments. I think that's worth doing.
Okay.
So people have that as a resource, but definitely share this out. And there's so many things we didn't talk about, elevator pitches, etc. But you know what? We can't do it all. We're going to leave you wanting a little more. Jill, thank you for being here. And each of you, thank you for being here. I'm grateful, and I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wild Card Wednesday. You know what that means. No idea what the topic is. We'll pull it out of a book, literally, and I'll find a page, and that's what I riff on. This is how I prepare. Right?
Always the same book or different books?
No, well, books I wrote.
Oh, okay. I'm like, wow, okay.
It would be really hard to do it on somebody else's
So you're
book.
thinking, is it the Bible? Or,
No.
Mechanics Daily?
No, just mainly Take Back Your Weekends.
Okay.
Right? Or
that's a great book. I love that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I pull out my How to Be Resilient When Life Sucks book.
That one's good.
Yeah, and then my business cards to business relationships when I'm feeling businessy.
Oh, you know what? I still love that one.
Yeah, it's an old book though.
Yeah.
Wiley published that in 2012.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
I still recommend it to my network.
Yeah, thank you.
Fine.
Yeah, it's still evergreen. One of the schools still uses it as a textbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't they? I mean, especially now that we can get back to hopefully soon,
Yeah.
and there are a few live networking events.
I've been going to them. It's a lot of fun. All right. Anyway, as we keep chit-chatting, that's what happens when you have a friend on the show.
Mm-hmm.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Liliana, and everybody for being here. And I hope you have an amazing day, and may you stress less, do more, and be happier.